Conversations across time. Conversations across time.
Good evening. Welcome to Conversations Across Time. My name is Vivian Crawford, and seated next to me, which would be on your right, my left, is my co-host who's always here, former Pennsylvania State Representative Babette Josephs. Babette, welcome. I think we're going to have fun tonight.
Always on the left.
Always on the left. Exactly. And so our guests tonight are seated next to Babette is Mr. Roy Cohn. And for those of you that are frequent watchers of this show, frequent viewers, you know that Mr. Roy Cohn is an attorney who gained fame. Perhaps his most fame was gained as the counsel to Senator McCarthy during the Red Scare days. And so welcome to you, Mr. Roy Cohn.
Yeah, whatever.
Seated next to Mr. Cohn is the well-known, probably premier figure when you talk about the history of comedic acting, and a person that is just very dear to the hearts of anyone who is serious about free speech, and that is Mr. Charlie Chaplin. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Chaplin. And we're so happy that you're speaking tonight.
Yes.
Let me ask you about Michael Flynn.
What about Michael Flynn?
My friend Michael Flynn.
Well,
What about Michael Flynn?
well, Michael Flynn.
Did you ever try and get him to tell the truth?
I don't know the guy.
Obviously,
Hey,
nobody ever did.
hey, he works for Donnie.
Not anymore.
He worked for Donnie, okay?
You persecuted my fellow artists. You questioned them vigorously.
You're all idiots.
If you had Michael Flynn, you would have said, "Great job, Mr. General Flynn.
Sure.
We love you to death." Even though he colluded with the Russians, even though he took money from the Russians, an enemy of this country. So it just shows you that
And then lied about
they
it.
lied about it.
And embarrassed
it-
our
it-
vice
it-
president,
it-
which
it-
I couldn't care less given who our vice president is,
It
but
bo-
it's
it boggled-
not the kind of thing you
It
do.
boggled my tramp's mind that you would be so hypocritical in terms of how you viewed people from the left and their criticism, and how you view people from the right, and you justify everything
Anybody
they
who
do,
has
even
power.
though it's more
That's
treasonous.
the trait.
It's
That's the
more
way.
it's
That's
more
it.
treasonous than anything any of the people I associated with in the 40s and 50s ever did.
Well, just
All he
remember
wants
that
is power.
treason is whatever the ruling elite says it is. So,
Well, so is history.
So it's a fluid definition.
Yes.
yeah,
No, it's not. It's a aid and comfort to the enemy in wartime, or aid and comfort to the enemy anytime. So if your boy Ducky aided the Russians in terms of their aggression in the Crimea, or in what they're doing in Syria, or in the
place.
Ukraine,
Or Turkey.
then that would
Or
be as
Turkey.
treasonous as any. It's, in fact, in my opinion, it's much more treasonous than what Paul Robeson ever did, because all he did is speak out against injustice.
And
It's
now-
much more even though you
Now
couldn't.
we got the communist supporting the fascist, Marie Le Pen,
Right,
in France.
right.
It shows you how ideologically pure these people are.
Yes,
The
that-
only
that-
thing they care about is power, status, and
But
money.
I want to say something. I want to say something that's going to sound
That seems
unusual to
clear.
everyone. In view of, in support of Mr. Cohn, you know, you really did train a group of criminals to be some goddamn good criminals.
hey, my legacy.
Stellar.
Proud of it.
So
I'm serious.
You would-
international criminals.
Yes, on a magnitude, on a level that would make Don Corleone blush.
You, Righty Roy, you probably think you'd be Attorney General if you were still alive.
Hey, why not? Crush all you motherfuckers.
Other than the fact that you were disbarred.
Huh? So, hey, whoa.
Well, but you know, when we think about it, and this is one of the things that we try to do on Conversations Across Time, we try to alert our audience to exactly what is happening, what is going on. And I must say that the likes of a Roy Cohn and some of the other villains that we've had as guests on this show, they have been very effective.
Oh, yeah.
They have been very effective.
Yeah, but you know, you give them too much credit. It's always easier to destroy. It's really easy easy to find an edifice and tear it down, blow it up.
As you guys
What's
will find out
hard,
soon enough.
as Paul Ryan just found out,
build
is to build something up, something you could never, ever do, or any of your proteges.
So
And that's why I'm not interested in you. There's nothing you can do that will benefit me. Why should I care?
But Babette, so let me
I don't
just
care
say
you
this.
don't care.
So is it your position? So is it your position that the alt-right and the neoconservatives, as
There's
we
no
would,
alt-right. They're Nazis.
well, for purposes of our audience, you know, what deems itself as the alt-right movement, you are suggesting that they only have the ability to destroy.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm not
That's very
disagreeing.
easy.
I want.
It's easy to destroy. You're a toddler. Somebody built a sandcastle.
Yes.
You bang it down. How long did it take a toddler to build one up? You're not interested, but I am. That's all I care about.
And I would dare say that the
all I care
population
about.
of the United States is interested. I think one of the things that your folks found out with this recent healthcare debacle is that, you know, people like getting good stuff from the government.
And why not? They pay taxes.
And
And the government works for them.
it's supposed to work for them. It's supposed to work for them.
The Obama government worked for them for the most part. For the most part.
Mr. Cohen and his ilk, they don't object to the government when it works for them.
No,
They
of course
just
not.
object.
Of course not.
They only object when it works for somebody else, and somebody maybe that really needs the government to work for them.
Hey,
So,
that
Mr.
is communism. That is communism.
You already
Wait,
you
you love
accused me that a
communism.
million
What
times.
communism?
You
accused
love it. You're a big friend of Putin. What do you think he is? A Republican?
Well,
that's Mr.
he may, well, let's just say a lot of us in the Republican Party, Sarah
But you
Palin,
accuse
I-
Mr.
I feel-
Chaplin.
they
feel-
love, they respect Putin. He's a strong man, a tough guy, and
He's a
Donnie's respects his.
communist
Roy,
and a dictator.
I feel terrific because the time
You
has
just
gone by.
vindicated Charlie.
In 1952, you accused me of being a
Yes.
communist.
Now
You
it's
just did
okay.
it again.
Why?
So you just accused me of being. You said that's you're a
Yes.
communist. You just accused me again. The same old stuff comes.
But now he loves communists, so it's hard to know
Well,
what
give me a
that
kiss,
means.
Roy.
Don't try it.
Wait a
Don't
minute.
try it.
Wait a minute.
Get outta here.
Mr. Chaplin, I don't believe you're his type. but
I'm
No,
not tight.
for sure, man. I
likes
have a
girls.
beautiful wife.
He
yeah,
likes
yeah, wait a
girls.
minute. Not only does he like girls, he likes beautiful girls.
Like I said, he's one of the biggest horror masters in Hollywood.
But
Keep
he was
that
a
in mind.
communist whore and so is Putin. So I don't know why you don't love him.
You know something? I just had a vision.
Uh-oh.
Putin on his horse with no shirt on.
Comrade Nipples?
Comrade Nipples. We are overlooking
I
the
think I
fact-
turned Roy on.
That's exactly where I was headed.
For sure.
because for you to have built your career as the lead counsel for Joseph McCarthy, and there's something else that we haven't mentioned, and that is that it was your movement, your impetus that got Judge Kaufman appointed on the trial of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg.
Who did nothing, at least Ethel did nothing.
Ethel did nothing.
Right.
I mean, history has cleared her, exonerated her. She did absolutely nothing. But you,
She's still dead.
you
Remember
and your,
that.
So are you, thank God.
You and your girlfriend, J. Edgar Hoover, made the decision that you were going to apply pressure to Ethel to make her testify against her husband. So therefore, when she wouldn't testify against her husband, she kept saying, I don't have any names, I don't know anything. But
That's her problem.
you put Kaufman in place, you blamed the alleged conspiracy, and I believe Julius Rosenberg, there's no question in my mind that he was playing games with the communists. I don't have a question about that. Now, his motivation for it may have been something that was pure, because he thought the atom bomb had just been used, and he felt that it was so devastating that in order to neutralize the United States, that another power needed to have the ability to have a bomb. That was his naivete, which allowed him to get there. But his wife was in no way involved. But because you pressured her to testify against her husband and she wouldn't, she ended up that she was also given a death penalty, which we found out from her brother who
Lied.
David Glassinger, who testified that
Gold
that-
glass.
Green glass.
Green
Green glass. That he lied, that his wife had been the person that had conspired, not Ethel. But my point is that you actually moved to have her similarly tried for treason, and at that point, because treason is very hard to prove. Let's start there. It's
Whatever
very-
the government says it is, remember.
Yes, but treason is very hard to prove. But my point is that Ethel Rosenberg did nothing, and you moved for her to receive the death penalty. A woman who had 2 children, and
Not my
you didn't care.
problem.
But she was innocent.
So what?
We are shocked that you lied, Mr. Cohn. We are
Yes, we are
shocked.
very shocked.
Like from the scene that my good friend Humphrey Bogart made in Casablanca,
Yes.
where the
Gambling.
Another Hollywood commie.
he came running out and was shocked that there was gambling in the joint. I'm shocked that you lied in the Rosenberg trial. I'm
Like
totally
I
shocked.
said, it worked.
Because
So
you're
what do you
such a
think?
man of integrity. I'm just shocked.
So what do
Lied.
you think? Daniel Ellsberg, who released the Pentagon Papers, he should have been executed?
Of course.
Edward Snowden,
Yeah.
execute?
Hang 'em.
But
James
it's
Fonda.
really
James
it's really
Fonda.
funny, Ms.
Kind of
Ms.
bitch.
Joseph, that he would call them traitors and have them executed, lie about Ethel Rosenberg. She was executed for espionage, yet he sits here and justifies what Ducky Trump
Was doing
and
with
his
Putin.
administration does in terms of colluding with Putin and the Russians and actually favoring policies that are more favorable to the Russian interests than to the interest of the American people, to the
Which
interest
sounds
of
like
the
some
United
kind of sedition
Don,
to
Yeah,
me.
right.
Donnie knows what he's doing. Donnie's the president, and you're not. Just remember,
Donnie him?
Donnie. Donnie knows what he's doing.
Ducky.
I trust Donnie.
Okay, let
As,
me
I,
ask
as,
you-
I, as I said before,
Really?
Righty
Wow.
Roy, as I said before, I made
You
a
are a bigger fool than I thought.
yeah. As I said before, I made a satire called "The Great Dictator" about Hitler, and I can make a greater movie because to satirize your buddy Donnie is easy.
Yes, too easy
Too
in many
easy.
ways.
I've got a question. Well, I want to ask you about Viktor Yanukovych.
What about Viktor Yanukovych?
I'm probably not pronouncing his name right, and I want to
Well,
apologize.
you
to
liberals are
audience.
stupid anyway.
Well, he's the president of the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And let's talk
Your
about
buddy.
when we did the show where we explained, and Mr. Dostoevsky was here, and we explained that Russia's always had an interest in access to the Atlantic seacoast, the Atlantic waterways for the trade routes. And that
Because all of the natural harbors in Russia
are frozen.
are frozen 5 months out of the year. Maybe more.
So the interest in the
So you
Ukraine,
can't ship
Russia's
out of them.
interest in the Ukraine is very clear to us. But what is troubling to me, and what I hope that our audience clearly understands, is that Michael Flynn, he was involved.
Security advisor
Security
for
advisor
a moment.
for Turkey, and we'll get to Turkey. But in Ukraine, Paul Manafort represented the interests of the Ukrainian president because he was a puppet of Putin, of Mr. Nipples. And
Comrade Nipples,
Comrade
please.
Nipples, I'm sorry. And so the fact that Paul Manafort was someone that was very close to Donald Trump. Okay, I can understand that you say that the power elite rule the world and they're interested in money, but I want to understand how stupid they feel that the United States population is, that we would not connect the dots between a Paul Manafort having a relationship and being the campaign manager for Donald Trump.
For what, 4 months?
5 months.
5 months.
5 months. But
Campaign manager, not
What?
some incidental guy who just drifted in for 5 minutes.
why would Donald be so stupid as to have him in position? Because all it takes is a few clicks on the internet to backtrack and find out where Paul Manafort's
Why
interests
would you ask us, how do we get rid of these people?
Well, don't worry about it, because the American people don't give a crap.
That's
they
why
are
there were
stone cold
5,000
stupid.
people at the
They
airport
they
in
just
January, I
They
suppose.
just want to stay. They don't give a crap about what's going on. They just want
That's why there are
see their
people
reality
every
shows with the big
Tuesday
tits.
in front of Pat Toomey's office, and Pat Toomey does not have big tits.
Roy,
He doesn't have a big anything
Roy, Donald Trump
except ego.
admits that you were his mentor. He has a lot of respect for you. So let me ask you.
He has respect for Putin too,
Yeah, well, they might be at the same level.
and
But let
women
me
that
ask
he
you-
can grab
let
the
me ask you
pussies of.
this question, Roy.
That's what women
If
like.
you were
Wow, they love him.
Donald's advisor today,
Right.
would you have allowed him to hire Paul Manafort as the campaign manager, knowing that he had all these ties to Russia? Would you have allowed him to hire General Flynn as the national security advisor, knowing that he spoke on Russian TV, knowing that he attended a dinner and sat next to Putin? You're one of the things that Trump always said about you, that you were a winner and you were smart. Would you have advised him against doing those things, or would you have just said he has so much power, he can do whatever the hell he wants?
I want to interject something before you answer that question.
What?
I want you to remember, even though you were disbarred, that you're
I
trained.
retired. I went.
Okay,
well,
well,
whatever.
it's okay. But you're training as an attorney, and you know as an attorney that there's certain events that are discoverable, meaning that when you are in litigation, the other side has an opportunity to find out some information about you that you may not have wished for them to have, because it's called discovery. So my question to you is, just illuminating what Mr. Chaplin has said to you, knowing that hiring Paul Manafort and Paul Manafort's history is discoverable, would you have done that?
I guess I'm just gonna have to assume Donnie knows what he's doing. That's it.
You think he's in debt to Putin, Ducky?
I don't know.
You think that's what his tax returns will show us, and that's why he sucks up to him all the time, because he owes him billions of dollars?
You're one of the
That's-
people that advised him when he was in trouble with the with segregation and not to show
Yes,
his
with
tax
HUD.
returns. You
Yes.
always tell him don't show his tax returns. You're
Not in the
He's
show.
a good student. He's a good student. He's following exactly what his
right.
teacher taught him.
He loves you. He'd probably love you more than J. Edgar did.
Gotta go back to the queer thing, huh?
I didn't say
We,
anything.
no one said anything to say. Okay, but you know what? You know what my dad used to say, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So, okay, that's an issue for you. I've tried to allay your concerns about that to tell you that we here don't care who you slept with. It's not of interest. The only reason it becomes a moment to us is that when you start persecuting people
For the same thing that you do.
behavior. Yes.
If-
Other than that,
Hey,
we don't care.
that was popular in those days, persecuting
If-
queers.
if it-
that was the 50s.
If in 1950
Thank goodness,
President
no war.
Truman and his advisors had engaged in the same type of behavior vis-a-vis the Soviet Union at the time, you would have tried to impeach him and try him for treason. So how could you have a double standard for the behavior of Ducky Trump?
Because Truman is a liberal. I
Truman
represent
is a liberal?
conservatives.
What?
Yeah.
You heard
And
it.
I'm
You
trying
heard it
to,
here.
and
Wait a
I'm
minute.
trying
Let's
to
stop you there.
undo all
What?
this liberal bullshit
Next
for the
you're
past
gonna
50 years.
Next you're
and that's
gonna
what we're
say
going to keep
Truman-
on doing.
Wait a minute. One
Next
of the
you're gonna
interesting
say
Roy,
Obama was the
Roy,
liberal.
honest
liberal.
to God, you know, I
We
made a...
decide who a liberal
He's gonna
is.
say Obama's a liberal next. Yes.
Honest to God, Roy, I made a lot
From
of
your
silent
lips to
movies,
God's ear,
and you
Roy.
just made me speechless again.
Yes.
We decide who a liberal is.
Oh my. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I want to say to you that at this point, you know, with you having now told us that President Truman was a liberal and that
He signed the civil rights bullshit.
Truman?
Yeah.
under
He
He
desegregated the military.
Well,
Oh boy, what a terrible person.
Yeah, really.
yeah. So now that
So now
once-
that we have a better fighting force, what a bad person.
but here's the thing. So
How
he-
about your buddy connection to all these foreign banks, the Russian National Bank, Deutsche Bank in Germany, and all these loans he
and how about the
has.
Syrian bank? The
Yeah,
Syrian
the Syrian
bank, oh, we
bank
can't
too,
overlook
and the
that.
Bank of Cyprus also.
Cyprus.
How about you taught him that? You taught him how to finagle
steal.
money to all these banks, and
It's called robbery.
Yes.
Stealing.
It's
Yes.
called financing.
Stealing.
That, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Who cares?
What I'd like to ask you, Mr. Cohn,
Yeah.
is we've talked about your connection with Donald Trump and the Trump administration. The fact that he's your protege and the fact that you led, that so many of the things that you taught him to do is exactly what we see being exhibited now. And I want to talk a little bit about Turkey.
About Turkey.
Well, I'm gonna explain it to you. That what we have happening right now is that Flynn, Michael Flynn, who was appointed by Donald Trump as the NSA chair. Now we know he's since had to resign that position as a result of lying to Vice President Pence, which is interesting to me because the fact that he lied to Pence is a very small thing. In the grand
but
scheme
it
of things, he should never
made
have been
Pence
hired.
pretty mad.
But he should never have been hired.
Of course not.
And I don't understand how.
He was pushed out of the Obama administration for this kind of behavior.
and for his radical behavior,
Lying.
lying. Now, the way that Turkey figures into this is that the Turkish president has a son-in-law, and the son-in-law. I'm going to apologize to our audience right now, but his name will appear at the bottom of the screen. But Mr. Al-Barak is the son-in-law of the president of Turkey. Mr. Al-Barak has become extremely wealthy, and he represents interests, and those interests are selling ISIS oil. When I say selling ISIS oil, it's because ISIS is financed because they have taken over oil fields that belong to governments where they are moving in that they have control of to enforce radical Islam. So they take over the oil fields. Now the interesting thing about that is that the oil fields, of course, what is their product? Oil. And that oil needs a market. And the president of Turkey's son-in-law is directly involved as a businessman in selling ISIS oil. Now,
Of course,
when we
those are people who are after Muslims. Let's remember the Turks are 98% Muslims.
Exactly. So that what we have is that we have the oil that has been seized by ISIS making its way to the marketplace through the son-in-law of the president of Turkey, and I dare say
dictator of
the
Turkey.
dictator of Turkey. And I dare say to you that there is no one who believes that the dictator of Turkey doesn't know what his son-in-law is doing. Yet he is selling this oil, which is financing ISIS, which is what the United States and your boy Donald Trump says we're fighting. So.
And Flynn is helping.
And Flynn is helping that to happen. Now,
I
given
call
that,
sedition, treason perhaps.
You don't know. I mean, you don't really know what's going on.
okay, but
well, we do know what's
we
going
have some
on.
information. We know, for instance, that James Wolseley
Circumstantial
came
evidence.
to a meeting, former CIA director, comes into a meeting and is stunned to hear Michael Flynn made the statement, we got to get that guy. They were trying to arrange the kidnap of, and again, I apologize for the pronunciation of his name, but Fatullah Gulen, who lives in the Poconos, who is here on asylum.
Who
So-
is here, let me say, as a scholar. This man is
scholar.
about as much as in danger as Charlie Chaplin. I visited in Istanbul, I visited Fethullah Gulen's headquarters. It's a library and meeting rooms. Very dangerous, very dangerous.
Damn right,
No
you guys
wonder
like,
the
those guys like
dictator
that
is
are,
after
But-
him.
but-
Miss Joseph, I'm afraid they're going to treat you like they treated me and not let you back in the country if
I'm
you
not
ever go
leaving.
over there again. I
Yes.
seriously.
oh, please leave. We don't need you.
Oh, you need me so bad. You
But-
have no
but,
idea.
But you see, there was a coup attempt in 2016, and those of us, you remember the coup attempt. And
Very
so
well.
so that what the Turkish
all
government...
my friends' families lost their jobs.
Oh, really?
Yes. And one or two of them were really worried about the safety of their parents who are in Turkey and to whom they are sending money and food.
But,
And,
but
and
let
this
me...
is who Michael Flynn was employed
Yes.
And wait a minute, and didn't
When he
declare...
was employed by Donald Trump at the same time.
Yes.
And didn't declare that he was an agent of working on behalf of a foreign government until...
For
And,
what?
and
Why should he
lied
do that?
and lied
by. Because it's the law, I believe.
It's the law.
I believe
Law,
it's
like
the
I
law.
said, the law is whatever the ruling elite decides it is.
But-
And they
if
got
Ma-
rid
if
of
Flynn
him
wants to
because
make
he
a few
lied
bucks, that's his-
to the vice
God,
president.
God bless him.
But let me ask this. In spite of all that you say about him making a few bucks, my question is, where are the Donald Trump people? Did they not vet Michael Flynn? So that if they, and I have a hard time believing that they did not vet him.
Hey,
so given that,
They
must be
vetted him
complicit.
about as good as Paul Ryan vetted the American Health Care Act.
Okay.
Zero. Incompetent.
But here's my question to you.
Worms. They're a bunch of
My
worms.
question is, what if they did
Except
vet
worms
him?
have a
What if
Exactly,
they did vet him and
exactly.
they knew? That's my
Exactly,
question. I find
exactly.
it hard to believe that I, sitting at my laptop, can find this information out, and the Trump people didn't know.
Exactly. They
Trump people didn't know the
they
American
vetted him
Health
and
Care
said
Act
we
was a
don't
piece
care
of garbage.
because that's good for us and that's good for our business. And I believe Mr. Trump has investments in Turkey hotels and things like that. It's the Trump
Yeah, yeah,
Istanbul.
If we
He
saw his
does.
tax returns, we'd
Yeah,
know.
yes.
But we
Like-
can't see his tax returns.
That's his
Another
fault.
thing. That's
That's
another
Mr.
thing.
Cohn's foot.
That's his advice.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, make a deal. Make a deal with Erdogan. I mean, Erdogan's a tough guy. Putin's a tough guy. Donnie respects tough guys. He knows how to
Erdogan's
deal
not
with
a
guys
tough
like
guy.
that.
No,
He's
he's
a
a
coward
bully.
and a bully.
Yeah, I think he's a bully.
What bully?
Yes.
I would hit him over there with my cane and he would cry.
Yeah, because
Hey,
I
talk
think
about, hey,
So would
that's
Trump.
president there.
That's what I said.
Trump.
I meant,
Yeah, he
I
is
meant
the
I would
president.
You meant
Don't you
Erdogan.
forget it.
No, I would hit Trump over
But one
the
of
head
the
with my
things-
cane and he would cry.
He would
one of the
cry.
things that we know about bullies is that bullies very often tend to be little girls. They
No,
tend to
there's
be.
nothing wrong with little girls. They're
No, I
cowards.
don't mean that. I'm
You'll
talking
get, you'll
about.
get
Hey,
Mr.
hey,
Cohn all upset again.
You're talking about the
Don't-
president
They
here.
tend to
Donnie
be,
respects
but you know,
tough guys.
a bully tends to be this
coward.
person that's a coward. And when I say a little girl, I mean
You're
one of
calling
those-
Donnie a coward.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Hey,
yes,
hey.
I want to make it clear to the audience. If I
Oh,
wasn't
make it clear.
I want to make it abundantly clear.
Damn
He
right.
is a bully, and bullies are usually cowards. They travel in packs, and he travels in a pack. We've got Flynn, we've got Bannon, we've
What?
got Tillerson. They're all
Carter
traveling
Page,
together.
Roger
Carter
Stone.
Page, yeah, and what's this young boy's name? His son-in-law. They're all part of this. they're
Kushner.
all- Kushner. They are all
There's Steve Miller.
little girls that need to be at tea parties, but because they're all together, that gives them the power, and that makes them very evil. They are part of an evil
Because-
empire. Yes, I said.
Are Mr. Flynn, or is Mr. Flynn, and are the other cohorts in these collusions with Russia and Turkey as dangerous to the security
That
of
guy's
the,
bigger than a dog.
of the United States as people like myself that you
Worse.
accused of being
Much worse.
communist?
Much
Are they?
worse.
Are
How do
they?
you view them?
Are they as dangerous, less dangerous, equally dangerous as the
Not
None of
people?
the
dangerous at all.
above.
Not dangerous at all.
The American public has to keep speaking out because people who push ideas that have to do with freedom and responsibility and the right to speak up and the right to make a political decision in public, the people who advocate that are a heck of a lot more dangerous.
One of the things that I appreciate, Mr. Cohn,
What?
is that at least you demonstrate and have explained exactly how Donald Trump and the people from the Donald Trump administration, the people in power, and not just the people that we see, but the people who are pulling his strings, like Vladimir Putin, like Steve Bannon, I want you to understand where we are. So all your protests, all your demonstrations, all of that is important. You're not to rest. You cannot rest because there's so much more we have to do. And we will see you next week. And Mr. Cohn, Mr. Chaplin, and Babette, and maybe by that time Mr. Robeson has gotten his passport situation straightened out, and they've released him. And maybe by then he can join us. This has been Conversations Across Time. Thank you.
Conversations across time.